This is the Invincible podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about Invincible Season 2, Episode 3, This Missive, This Machination.
You're a good human, Mark Grayson.
Hey, when I'm in this outfit, I'm invincible.
So far.
No, I'm saying, you have to call me Invincible. It's like a secret identity.
Oh, right. Of course. Invincible.
Welcome back, Guardians, to the Invincible podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about Season 2, Episode 3 of Invincible, This Missive, This Machination. I had to say that 4 different times to get it right on the first take, because this is the take you're hearing, so I got it right, I swear. I am one of your Invincible hosts, Chris.
Welcome back, Chris. I'm one of your other hosts, Derek, and welcome back, fellow Guardians. Good to have you back, Chris.
Yes, thank you for having me back. You know, it's a good thing to be back every now and again. Unfortunately, the germ-centered child that I bore from the fruit of my loins is germ-filled and basically took himself down and then me and the rest of the house out with it. He's not even 6 months old. We were just talking before we started recording, but yes, apparently his superpower is I get sick, you all get sick. And you gotta respect it. You gotta respect it. It's a one, all for one and one for all, kind of Dogtanian style.
Exactly. Welcome to your life for the next 18 years, Chris.
Well, it could be less. I can kick him out sooner if you really want. If it gets too much in the way of my podcasting, I might consider it. But yes, I am back. And a good thing, because I got to watch this episode and talk to you all about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, great to have you back. And really a huge thanks to John for jumping in last minute. As he said before, he'd never podcasted on Invincible before, and he'd only kind of watched them in the background. While he has enjoyed them, he hasn't been watching them the way you'd podcast about them. Yeah. So he found it really enjoyable to podcast about them, but still feels he missed a couple of things that he'd normally pick up on when he's podcasting. So thanks again, John, for jumping in. It's back to myself and Chris for your regularly scheduled podcasts about Invincible for the next couple of weeks.
Yes, well, for this week and 2 more weeks, because we have the Season 2 episode 4 kind of finale, part 1 finale, next week. And then the Atom Eve 1 hour special that we got, which was great fun. And then we're on break until kind of January at some point.
Well, they're still saying early 2024 for the second half of Invincible. And I'm suspecting that may still be possibly April or May of next year.
Yeah. May 29th. That's still technically first half.
Exactly. Still early 2024. No, I'm sure it'll be with us as soon as it possibly can. Announcement this week from Robert Kirkman being interviewed about Invincible, where he said he's looking to have a new season every year of Invincible. So that is the hope. They're working towards that. They did get commissioned for season 2 and 3 at the same time, as we talked about last week. And hopefully it stacks up that we'll get a new season of Invincible every year.
That would be great if we do. Give me even a shorter season. 6 episode seasons. I can deal with that too.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Or it could be like The Simpsons. We'll get 22 episodes a year for the next 30, 40 years.
Yeah, maybe not that. There's a finite amount you can do with Invincible. As by the Fox Simpsons, where I'm pretty sure I've heard half of those jokes 3 times already when you watch some of the new ones.
Really?
Yeah, it went down in quality, in my own opinion. But anyway, we're not here to talk about The Simpsons. We are here to talk about Invincible. Make sure, if you haven't, to head on over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can subscribe on any flying or grounded podcast player, and you can go to Spotify and iTunes and anywhere you want to get us, and just make sure you rate, review, leave us 5 stars, whatever you need to do. But we also need you to send us some feedback because we love hearing from you, our fellow Guardians. So make sure you send us any feedback to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. You can leave us a voicemail over on tvpodcastindustries.com, or you can head on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries, where we have a spoiler post for each and every episode. And you can let us know your thoughts for those episodes in there, and we'll read them out on this episode or these episodes with my or Derek's dulcet tones.
Absolutely. Or maybe even John's, if you're lucky.
Yes, if I come down with lurgy one more time. With that being said and done, Derek, do you want to tell us who gave us what, where, when, and how with this episode details?
Absolutely. Well, of course, Invincible was created by Robert Kirkman, Cory Walker, and Ryan Ottley. The supervising director for this episode, once again, is Dan Duncan. This episode was written by Adria Lang. This is her first episode of Invincible, but previously she wrote an episode of American Gods Season 2 and 2 episodes of You for Netflix, one in Season 1 and one in Season 2. So very into the drama side of things. Yeah.
And American Gods, it's one that's always... kind of, I know it's it's a Neil Gaiman. I've always wanted to get into it, but it's one of those kind of, there's 3 seasons. Oh God, I just never did. It was Stars, I think, so it never really came onto Irish terrestrial. It was like, it's never been streaming on anyone that I could find. Maybe Prime, I think, streamed it at one point. But it's my blind spot. I need to get and watch that. Really do.
I would highly recommend reading the book. The book is absolutely brilliant. One of my favourite Neil Gaiman books. The first season and second season of American Gods are quite good. And then behind the scenes, some massive, massive problems, which led to a terrible third season of the show.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I'll watch the first 2.
But I do have some good news for you, Chris. It is available on Amazon Prime. Where you're watching Invincible, so you can check it out. Highly recommend it. Very, very good first season, definitely.
Fantastic. Well, I will check that out.
And then all you need to do is just read the book to catch up on the rest of the story. That's what I'd suggest. There you go.
Yeah.
The episode was directed by Tanner Johnson. This is his first episode of Invincible, but previously directed 21 episodes of the DuckTales revival starring David Tennant.
Gotta love it. Still, DuckTales, one of the best theme tunes ever created, and I will fight people for that. Woohoo!
Absolutely.
Always.
And as we always say at TV Podcast Industries, anything with David Tennant in it is fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll give our listeners one tidbit. During my wedding, the second song to play ever at my wedding was the theme to DuckTales, and 2 people got up, myself and one other mate. Everyone else was like, what the hell is happening? It was a ska version by Suburban Legends. It was a really good version, but it just kind of hard shifted from a song to this, and everyone was like, what?
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. A little inside info about Chris that, yeah.
I think
don't play
myself and John,
DuckTales at your wedding.
I think myself and John were just taken completely by surprise and had no idea what it was until the song was almost over. So that's probably why we weren't dancing to it, Chris.
Yes.
I promise. But Chris, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Invincible 203, this missive, this machination?
Sure. As Mark settles into his first day at Upstate University with William as his roommate, he consummates his relationship with Amber. To give them some privacy, we suddenly are shifted to catch up with Alan the alien. Following Alan's meeting with Mark Grayson in Season 1, he returns to the Coalition of Planets and shares his discovery that Mark could be the champion that they are looking for. Not only is he half Vulturite, but he also fought against his father. These 2 things have not happened in Vulturite history since the Great Purge. The council leader, Thaddeus, is interested in the weakness revealed by Alan, but is also concerned that he believes there is a spy in the Coalition, a planet that had just joined the Alliance. It was targeted by the Vulturites as soon as they signed up. Thaddeus tasks Alan with rooting out this spy, but soon after rekindling his relationship with his girlfriend Telia, Alan is confronted by 3 powerful Vulturites. They beat Alan to a pulp, trying to learn more about the Vulturite who sired a child and left his post. As Alan recovers from his injuries, he is visited by Thaddeus, who pulls the plug on him to let Alan die of his own injuries. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Debbie Grayson, now an empty nester, goes to a support group for spouses of superheroes. But at a bar following the meeting, Debbie talks to Theo, another member of the group. She learns he was the husband of the Green Ghost who was murdered by Omni-Man. When she reveals she was Omni-Man's wife, she is told never to return to the support group again. Back at the university, Mark is visited by an alien who takes the form of his favourite comic book character, Seance Dog. Mark quickly sees through the ruse, and the alien Nualzot from the planet Thraxa pleads for him to return and help him save his planet from destruction. With a little push from William, Mark says his goodbyes to Amber and asks her to tell his mum that he'll be gone for at least a month. Ignoring a direct order from Cecil, he travels to Thraxa to save the billions of residents. But when Mark arrives, he learns it was just another ruse. He was summoned to the planet by its leader, his father, Nolan Grayson, aka Omni-Man.
What a shocker of an ending.
Good ending. It's a good ending. I do like they jumped quite a lot with this, and again the narrator aspect was very fun. Did not see it coming. I was like, okay, that's a different take. It was literally almost like the reading panels that you would have on those bits in a comic book. They would pan away and it would be someone else's narrating voice. It was very fun. It was a very fun way of doing it.
The narrator was excellent. I love the idea of seeing Mark. He's having sex with Amber. Okay, let's give him a bit of privacy. And then he goes off to Alan. And then Alan and Talia have sex. And then he's like, okay, need to go back to Mark. Oh, no, they're still going on there. Gotta go back up to Alan. Where do we go next? Really good. Nice fourth wall break there.
So should we jump into our top points for this episode to have kind of a deep discussion on what this is?
Absolutely, yeah. We're going to start off with point number one. Let's talk about Debbie and Debbie's visit to the SOS, the Spouses of Superheroes. This is following on from the first episode where Olga had paid her a visit and given her a card of a support group that could help her out. So Debbie decides to call it, and now that she's an empty nester, after having delivered Mark to college, she is on her own, trying to deal with all of her thoughts and feelings about what happened with Omni-Man.
And I really enjoy this because it is starting to show Debbie. Well, hold on. Let me just rephrase that. They're expanding Debbie a lot more than the comics.
Right.
But really in this, they're showing that, what is it like to not only be the wife or the spouse or the partner of a superhero, where you have to deal with that, like Olga is saying, but now she's also dealing with this. The grief over what Nolan has done, and that Nolan called her pet, and all those different aspects. She's literally going through depression, PTSD, loneliness, empty nesting, like all these different problems smashed into one.
Absolutely.
So it really is, it's difficult. It's hard for her.
Yeah.
And you really get to see some of that, like, as it gets worse and worse throughout the episode of, like, and especially then you really feel for her at the end. Yeah,
absolutely. They're really writing Debbie's character really, really well. She's going through some absolutely awful stuff. And it's even just the disregard from Mark when he goes off. And we'll talk about, obviously, those details later on in the episode. But when he leaves and he just calls his girlfriend and goes, can you just call my mom and tell her I'm going to be gone for a month? Like, this woman has to have some serious abandonment issues anyway because of dealing with Nolan and what happened to him. And now Mark's gone off to college, said, I'll be back on Sunday. I'm only a 10-minute flight away if ever you need me. And now he's off to another galaxy, with not even a phone call to her, telling his girlfriend to call her, with everything that she's going through and this support group that she's effectively thrown out of by the end of the episode, gets no actual support from them. Debbie's on a pretty bad path right now. Yeah.
And you gotta read the gentleman she goes for the drink with, who was, the partner of Green Ghost,
Theo,
like Theo goes hard once he figures that out, and I suppose you can kind of understand it. You can see it from his perspective, but the delivery of that scene outside the bar between the two of them, and you talked about how the writer did some episodes of You. You can really see those dramatic scenes, like you could see that in live action being delivered and being straight-laced, and just, okay, insert superhero A for policeman or fireman.
Right.
And you could see how it could really play well.
Yeah.
In just live action. And then just one of these reasons I do. I love this show now, but also I love the source material, if you want to call it that, because they always played so well on, this is not your bog standard comic book. I joke about it, this is not your father's comic book, because it started as a trope and then it threw all the tropes out the window and they went into some very dark places.
Yeah.
This in this show shows me how far they're willing. I think they're going to push Debbie like all the way.
Yeah.
I think they're going to try and really get her to a point where you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen to her?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm very worried for what could happen to Debbie in the future. So yeah, it was a really, really strong moment when Theo confronts her and says, if you are the wife of Omni-Man, you should have known what he was like. You absolutely should have known your partner like I knew mine, basically. And if you didn't know him that well and you're not taking responsibility for it, I don't think the support group will be a safe place for any of us to be around you. So she's thrown out, and that was kind of her only sanctuary. You kind of got the feeling, even when she looked at the card a few times that Olga had given her, you kind of got the feeling that she was going, oh, should I do this? Should I go to the support group? So she mustered up the courage to go there, and then that door has been shut. So, yeah. Tough episode for Debbie.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's a majority if we want to move on to our next point.
Yeah, let's move on to our second point after Debbie, because we have the return of our favourite alien from another planet, Alan the Alien.
I love Seth Rogen. So I love the character of Alan the Alien. And we got a good introduction to him in season 1.
Yep.
And this really expands not just his backstory, but it really opens up the more universe cosmic aspect of the Invincible universe, and it goes deep. And you get a lot in this, 15 minutes, kind of give or take, where you have all the history of both him, the planets, the coalition, and then the next phase of what happens to him as well. Yeah,
this felt like its own complete one shot. We talked about the Adam Eve special, which we will obviously come back to after the end of this season, and we'll talk about it on that podcast. But it's like a standalone story for Alan, so you get to learn everything you need to know about him. You know how he was created. You know that he was created by his planet to beat the Viltrumites, among many, many other test subjects, and he was the only success out of it. But then it turns out he's not actually a success because he wasn't able to even beat one Viltrumite. He was still beaten to a pulp. So he is the best of them, but now his mission is to find somebody that is a champion who could possibly beat the Viltrumites.
Yeah. I suppose like the way that I try and kind of play it up as like some of the Marvel comic books where you're like, you're genetically cloned, blah, blah, blah. It's just a fun thing to see of how, like, in terms of why he was created and who he is, and when you have that backstory, and then see him go back to the council explaining he's met Mark is good, Mark is a Viltrumite or half Viltrumite, and that everything's okay. But then, and we'll get back to that kind of part in a second, but then seeing him go back to his girlfriend and seeing, like, you get, that's the fun part of the show, is they're not just showing you the juicy bit where, like, they could have easily, when they cut this and then to this, they could have just shown you just that scene in the council chambers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just shown that. No need to give you back. He's an alien. Don't need to tell you why he was born and how he was born and his backstory about his planet. No, I don't need that. And, don't need to know about his girlfriend kissing and all that. Don't need that. We just need that scene in the council.
Yeah.
Like, it's fun that you go back and you get to see him. And it's used in quite a playful way as well, obviously, with them going to make out and, I was going to say bump uglies, but I don't know if that's actually when two aliens have sex, if that's them bumping uglies. Who knows?
It could be bump beautifuls. Yes, exactly.
Yes, exactly. It could be just not even bumping. It could be entangling, like in our Avatar. Anyway, sorry.
Always thinking about alien sex, Chris. Always thinking about alien sex.
Always. But it's fun to see that they have given this character time to breathe. They're giving this universe time to breathe in a really fun way.
Yeah, and what's so interesting, I suppose, again, I'm not the comic book reader. I didn't get this far with the comic books. I haven't read up to Alan's story, but seeing this history in this episode, getting this pretty much half of the episode around Alan and what he's doing in the Coalition of Planets, what actually happens at the end of his part of the story came as a complete shock then. So because of all of that build-up, because we saw him last season, and because he's played by Seth Rogen, one of the producers on the show, you know, you're expecting that there's loads more to this character. And that aids the storytelling in this episode for me. I think it worked really, really well, you know. But there's a couple of things that come out of it. So we mentioned he comes back, talks to the Coalition of Planets. We meet the leader of the Coalition, who's Thedos, played wonderfully, of course, by Optimus Prime himself, Peter Cullen. So great to hear his voice back in animation. So always good. Instantly recognized him. But we hear the story from Alan's perspective. He's been dealing with Viltrumites for years, as have the Coalition of Planets. They're fully aware of who they are. He tells the story of Mark. He's a half Viltrumite who fought against his father, and his father left Earth, leaving his post. All of these things are things that no Viltrumite has done before. At least Thedas says not since the Great Purge. So all interesting perspective on the story of Omni-Man and Mark, that no other Viltrumite that they're aware of has ever sired a child on the planet he's been taken care of, and definitely none have ever walked away from their post. And that kind of comes back later on when we see the arrival of the 3 Viltrumites who are investigating this information that Alan has brought back, because they're going, this can't be possible. There's no way that a Viltrumite left their post. There's no way that a Viltrumite sired another child, because they all believe in purity of their race, right? And purity of their people.
Yeah. This is going to sound quite bad. They are a very fascist, Nazi-esque.
They are space Nazis, absolutely.
Yes, okay, yeah. Grand. I was trying to think. They're space Nazis who believe in the Ubermansion.
Yes.
Like Ubermachen. Like they're like the Uberman. You do not sire with these non-compatible Viltrumite genes, because you don't want to pollute their gene pool.
Exactly.
And it gets dark with that.
Yeah.
And they go hard on Alan because, like, he's lying. There's no way a Viltrumite will do this. They are, like, the best of the best. No Viltrumite. And well, we, of course, know this is to be true. Like we know that Nolan has left his post. And we know he has sired. But it's that kind of belief that it really is kind of starts to cement the Viltrumites as real space Nazis.
Yeah. And Alan takes an absolute beating here. Yes. You know, the intestines are ripped out of him. His eye is knocked out of his head. Absolutely destroyed. And I was watching it going, this is as savage a beating as the Guardians of the Globe got from Omni-Man. Yet there's 3 of them here taking out all their frustration and anger on Alan here. There's no way he survived. And then we see him wrapped up in the hospital bed, being visited by his girlfriend, Telia. And she's saying he's just about alive. Until Thedas gets his hands on the plug, right?
Yep. And we heard there was a spy. A mole.
From Thedas, though. Thedas sent Alan to find the spy. And then he's the one that pulls the plug on Alan.
I know. So I love how they leave it that, because that is that's the epitome of a cliffhanger at some point. Like that is like, yeah, our hero, or in this case, our hero, the other hero is on death's door, and you know what? We're gonna pull the plug.
Yeah.
Does that mean he's gonna move him to a safe space and just plug it out and run somewhere and get him somewhere safe?
Maybe.
Or is he gonna kill him? Because it's leaning towards we're gonna kill him.
Yeah. It is, definitely. And I suppose the speculation in the episode, you're set up to wonder who the spy is. And his girlfriend Telia calls out almost exactly the information that he gave to the council. And then the Viltrumites all give exactly the same information that Alan gave to the council as well, almost verbatim in their case. So who's the spy? Is it Telia? Is it Thedas? Is it somebody else that we haven't met yet on the council? Potentially. There's one of those 3. Does Thaddeus think that Alan's the spy? Is that why he's going to kill him? You know, it could be any of those things.
Yeah, and I hope we go back soon to this. I hope they don't just kind of leave this thread hanging. I fear they might. Because we got Alan one episode season 1.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm questioning whether I hope they go back to it in episode 4 and just kind of don't leave us hanging. But
Yes.
with it being a kind of, let's call it a part 1 finale, they might leave us until part 2, and then we'll get a secondary kind of, now, far, far away in a different galaxy, we see Alan.
Yeah.
And
I definitely like
he's alive.
I'd definitely like to see it next episode, at least just to find out, is he alive or dead? Because that does feel like the cliffhanger, that they've pulled the plug. We didn't see the body. We didn't have a funeral. So is he still alive? At least come back and tell us that next episode. That would be nice.
Yeah.
But that ends the episode right there. And everything else is post-credit. They did say this season would have a post-credit on every single episode, but I didn't think it was going to be half of the episode.
I know.
Nicely played.
Yeah. You got to enjoy they're taking this.
Absolutely. One other thing quickly before we leave Alan the Alien, I definitely want to call out that his girlfriend is played by Tatiana Maslany. This is her 3rd role in the season so far, which I really like. I like that she's been given all these voice roles in the show. They obviously love her comic genius. So great to see Tatiana Maslany here in another role after the previous 2 that she's played so far. And of course, She-Hulk, which we covered here on this very podcast as well.
Yeah, it's bringing it full circle. But let's move it on to our next point for this episode. Well, one of the major points.
Absolutely, yes. Some visitors from space. So we cut back to Mark as the second half of this episode. And he has a very interesting experience after he's come back from finally consummating his relationship with Amber. He finds out that all of his childhood things, his comic books and all of his action figures that he's taken from home, aren't going to play well in college. So he throws them all in the bin, except for Seance Dog, who is his favourite. And then he gets a visit from Seance Dog out of nowhere.
And you gotta love it. It's so fun. And I love Seance Dog is in full Doctor Strange OG comic book regalia, because that's just a fun way of doing it. Absolutely.
John did watch this episode with me and wanted to make sure everybody knew how much he loves Seance Dog and wants him to get his own TV show and his own comic book, because John's a massive Doctor Strange fan. So anything taking inspiration from Doctor Strange, he loves too. So I think he likes Mark even more now because he's a fan of Seance Dog.
Of course. Who doesn't love Seance Dog? This is a fun ploy. It is a fun kind of piece, because people are going to question, oh, well, it's a comic book show. Maybe there really is a Seance Dog, and he starts talking, and then it is fun to see how it turns out to be an alien in disguise.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
But I think it works well because, earlier on this season, we have learnt about all the other dimensions, every possibility is out there, this world of multi-dimensions. So it's entirely possible there is a world that has a Seance Dog that lives there. But yeah, exactly as you say, turns out to be a ruse from the alien from Thraxa, and Mark just beats the crap out of him, because that's what Mark does. Punch him with his fist. What if it had turned out to be a visitor from another dimension?
He would still punch the crap out of him.
Exactly.
Look, it's a fun one because you do get this. We need you to help save our planet. It is that Superman-esque type of kind of, you're the strongest one alive. Mm-hmm. We need you to help fly and stop all the meteors from destroying our homeworld.
Yeah.
Can you help us? And of course, Mark's like, no, I have things to do here. And it's fun that they use William to kind of go, well, no, dude, you got to do this. It's it is like with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
Another Spider-Man line.
Mm-hmm.
It does kind of ring true on that, and it's fun to see him kind of just go, okay, right, oh yes, I should go, I should help out.
And I suppose if we jump to the end and jump back at the big reveal that this planet is under the leadership of his father, Nolan Grayson, that kind of makes what happens here really interesting, because clearly Nolan is the one that sent Noel Zot, the alien, to this planet to encourage Mark to get there. So he's playing on Mark's savior complex. He's playing on the fact that Mark thinks of himself as this superhero that has to protect everybody. So Noel Zot tells him that there's billions on the planet that will die if he doesn't come with them. And that allows Mark to put aside everything that he's been focused on working for Cecil. We have Cecil calling him up, telling him, I order you not to go. And Mark going, I'm going. I don't care. I have to go and save these billions of people. That's what I would do as a superhero. I have to work for myself, not you. To which, of course, Cecil replies, well, that's exactly what your dad would have said. Still doesn't stop Mark, though. He also gets, as you say, gets the push from William, who's going to cover his classes. Amber says to him, don't ever apologize to me. I know what I'm getting myself into here. Don't ever apologize to me for saving lives. So he's been able to extricate Mark from all of his relationships by just playing on him being a savior. And that is definitely coming from Nolan.
Yeah. And again, I love that reveal.
Mm-hmm.
That reveal at the end, because you get the boring space travel part.
We only got 2 minutes of it. Mark had 6 full days of it with absolutely nothing to do on this ship.
So that's when you kind of wish you brought a Game Boy.
Exactly.
Or like just some deck of cards, solitaire, anything.
Anything. Yeah.
And I love that reveal because it really is a, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Because you do kind of don't think that's going to be how they reintroduce Omni-Man.
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. Obviously, there's a little bit of foreshadowing when Noel's asked by Mark where all the meteors are, and he goes, meteors? What meteors? What are you talking about? He's even forgotten his cover story that he gave to Mark to get him there. So, not the smartest tool in the shed, really.
No, not the smartest bug in the anthill.
All right. Yeah, that might work.
Yeah.
That might work.
Okay.
So what did you think about this, Chris? What did you think about those reveals that we have? Mark leaving everybody behind, not talking to his mom, ignoring Cecil's guidance, and him getting there to a planet controlled by his dad.
So backwards first. I knew about the dad part from the comic books, so knew, and as soon as I saw the bug, knew what was going to happen, but how they played it was quite well. And how they adapted it, I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
The not talking to his mum, we've already discussed, but he's separating himself from his life. He's focusing on, they're playing Mark as a character who is just very singular focused.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a superhero. No, I'm a college boy. I want a life. And no, I want to do this. And like, he becomes very hyper focus on very certain things. So yeah, he wouldn't see his nose to spite his face because his mum's feelings are not registering in terms of the anguish she is going through. I believe. Okay. Like he doesn't, she's had years of dealing with Nolan on this, and to be fair, she usually puts on a good face throughout most of it. I think he starts to see parts of it where like she kind of, the hinge was coming off the door last episode and things like that.
Quite literally, the hinge is coming off the door. I think he does reference it in this episode as well. You know, that, as I mentioned earlier on, that idea that he's saying to her, yeah, I'm going to be in college, but I'm only 10 minutes away. I can fly. Don't worry about it. I can come back to you if you have any problems at all. But I just think it's quite interesting. And I have a theory. And again, I haven't read forward in the comic books. I have a theory from this. And you'd probably laugh at it, Chris. But
go on.
My theory is Mark doesn't come out to Earth for quite a long time after this. So he says he's gone away for a month. It's just the build-up that we have here, where we have himself and Amber have sex for the first time. His mom thinks he's going to see him in a couple of days' time, and he's gone for definitely a month. William's going to cover for him for a while. He's turned his back on Cecil. And this was before he got to the planet and met his dad there. But I was kind of going, ooh, could you have a jump in time now where Mark's away from the planet for a while and he comes back and maybe Amber's growing older with a son, potentially? Could you have that? So it was an interesting idea that popped into my head. It would be amazing to think that Mark missed his entirety of when he should have been going to college because he's off flying in space, and these people that are left behind on Earth are growing old without him.
It is a good theory. It is a good. If I would read that comic book, let's say that.
There you go.
I would. I'm not going to confirm or deny anything.
Of course. I kind of know by the fact that he met up with his dad at the end of the episode that probably won't happen.
No, you never know. You never know what's going to happen in the future.
Unless you've read the comic books, Derek. I get it.
Yes, unless you've read. But again, actually, speaking of, I'll say this. And we say this a lot on our different shows when it's based on some form of source material and it's an adaptation, like we just did it quite recently on the Wheel of Time. They do a lot of changes and they adapt in different ways. There is a high chance they may make some stark differences and depart on the comic books. Like, yes, I knew the Omni-Man reveal. The other reveals that I think are coming may not happen. They may happen next episode. They may happen 8 episodes or season 4. Like, it's hard to tell. So, and at the same point, I get the feeling that just from the way Robert Kirkman talks about this show in particular, this is almost like his chance to go back and use his history of and his newfound knowledge of years of writing The Walking Dead and The Invincible to go back and change stories he wrote years ago, like a decade plus ago, and go, actually, I'm a better writer now. I'm a better kind of director. I have better understanding of storylines. Yeah. I'm going to completely remove this part, or I'm going to add in this part. And I think that's what they may do going forward and really spin season 2 plus into, we'll take some of the major beats, but you know what? We're going to get rid of this filler and we're going to do this part and we're going to change this. And I think this might be fun.
And also, he has a much better deal with Prime Video than he ever did with AMC. That was something that he talked about in many, many interviews with during his time working on the first 3 seasons of The Walking Dead, that he would take the storylines from the comic book, hit the major beats, but he would go circuitously around them. And then after he left the show, let's say, other than his executive producer role, after he left the show, they changed it completely and went wildly off the comic books. So, I think he'll probably still hit the major spine of the story of Invincible, but will expand on characters that didn't get the right treatment probably in the comic books. Like, as you said earlier on, Debbie having the storyline that she has. He's got a great actress playing Debbie. She now has something really meaty to get her teeth into as a voice actress. So I would say that's the kind of thing he'll do, expand and expound on the characters, which is really cool.
Yeah, agreed.
Great stuff. Anything else on the Visitors from Space, Chris, at all?
No, I just really am interested where they go with this next episode, because I think I'm seeing this as a very much a part 1, part 2. So I see very much the next episode as finale. And if they do what I think they will do, it's going to be cool. Excellent. Looking forward to it. We have a point 4 this week. The point 4 is, and the Guardians of the Globe are still messing about. Because they all appear here, but don't really accomplish anything. Might accomplish something in the future, but we're seeing them again. It's just kind of interesting that you have a superhero team that would be the focus of a lot of other animated shows or movies, an entire superhero team that are supposed to be protecting Earth. And we don't see them getting up to anything other than shouting at each other and having relationship problems. Yeah, the Guardians of the Globe were a fun one, because even in the comic books, for example, right, they didn't even they got a spin-off. They got 2 spin-offs, actually, at 2 different kind of mini-issue kind of runs. But it was never huge, because they, again, are not the focus of Invincible. Strangely, it's about a guy called Invincible.
Exactly, yeah.
But you're right. In any other show, any other comic book, they would be the Avengers. They are the Justice League. They are the Greek... But it's so much fun here to see how they really are a group of... it's a very fractured, broken group.
Totally.
Human group.
Yeah.
Especially with, like, Rudy. I love the character of Rudy and Monster Girl. And seeing them kind of go on, like kind of the back and forth and will they, won't they, and they're going to go on a date. Did they go on the date? What happens on the date? Where they go from here? It's fun to see that, because again, seeing Rudy as essentially a newborn, just in episode 1, feeling fear for the first time. So it's fun to see that.
It is, yeah. And as I say, the interesting part of the characters is, if you were just to have 5 minutes in an episode with the Guardians of the Globe, these are not the 5 minutes I would expect to have with them, where we're just seeing Rudy and Monster Girl go on a date, and him learning about fast food for the first time and going to a horror movie for the first time, having an argument between Rexplode and Duplicate about the fact that she slept with the Immortal, and her saying, well, the reason why I've slept with him is because he's the only one who's died as much as I have. And that's her whole reasoning behind their relationship. That little comedy moment with Shapesmith, again, completely unable to keep up this idea that he's human, where he walks into the gym and says he's going to walk in a stationary location, which is his version of trying to go to the gym and work like another human. But that's it. That's all they get of the episode. You'd expect if you're to drop in with the Guardians of the Globe, you'd at least have them stopping a bank robbery. If it wasn't going to be something superhero-like, you'd have them do something other than them effectively attack each other for on relationships or start new relationships. And
I do like the Duplicate and Immortal bit, because the Immortal is essentially the boss. He's the Captain America, and this is like a junior member sleeping with Captain America, who is 1,000 years old or more.
Mm-hmm. So, he's more the Tony Stark, is what you're saying.
Yeah, probably, actually. That's probably a better way of putting it. Fair. Nice job. Well done. By the way, Team Stark all the way versus Team Cap. Yeah.
Team Cap all the way. Yep.
Anyway, I enjoy that, and it does actually. There's a nice deeper thing there where Duplicate. It tells you that every version of her duplicate that dies, she feels.
Yes.
So again, that's an interesting kind of tidbit that you're kind of going, oh, so she is living that additional bit. So she is feeling that death each and every time. And if you look back at season 1, how many times she's died, you're like, oof, that's a spicy meatball already.
Yeah, it's a lot. And if you consider, as you say, Immortal's been around for thousands of years and dies pretty often, and she's saying she's died just as often. That's quite a lot of death to have gone through in the short life that she's had.
Exactly. But yeah, again, very much is nice to just check in with them, and interesting to see if they will kind of go further into the Guardians in the next episode, or if that's the Guardians now. We'll see them again in part 2. Because again, Adam Eve is not even there yet. Like, so you've got to see, well, will she rejoin the Guardians of the Globe? Is she going to become like a part of the crime? And then is that how we get a more focused view on them? Because Rexplode, secondary character, the rest of the Guardians, you could almost argue are tertiary. So why are they important to the rest of the story now? Is the question I'm going to start asking.
Absolutely. Any notes that you have for the episode? Anything else we haven't talked about, Chris, that you wanted to talk about?
Just a quick one. You asked me to kind of bring this in about Seance Dog. In season 1, we talked about this, but Seance Dog was originally in the comics Science Dog, and was changed for this for the show to Seance Dog, and we called this out in Chris's Comic Book Corner, but the reason for this, it's essentially Kirkman and his co-writing team were like, no, Science Dog it had its own comic book, it's its own thing, it's its own legal rights and stuff, and you know what? We want to kind of hold him off in case we want to do a Science Dog TV show or movie in the future. And that's why they changed it. You know what? This is to Seance Dog and make it look like Doctor Strange.
Very good.
That's how they did.
Very good. I like it because I think we were talking about it before our last season that Carl in The Walking Dead used to wear a Science Dog t-shirt, and he used to wear that in the comic books. Translated over onto the AMC TV show as well, which is quite cool in those first couple of seasons. But now it's Seance Dog here. But what a good choice to take some inspiration from Doctor Strange, at least. Very cool. Exactly.
So yeah, that's all my notes for this episode.
Excellent. I just have one off the back of Gen V. I just really enjoyed the conversation between Amber and Mark before they have sex in college, because we've just watched an entire season of Gen V where they talked about people having sex in college, all the things that a superhero has to go through. They created a PSA video, in case you haven't seen it, with all of the heroes from Gen V talking about the things you have to do as a superhero. Make sure you're standing 20 feet apart when you try things for the first time. And Amber goes through these thoughts in her head where she's saying to Mark, will you crush me? Will you accidentally crush me when we're having sex? Is that something that you'll do? And then she asks whether he has super sperm. Would that possibly kill her? And then he uses his superpowers to turn off the lights, and then they have sex. But I really like that they had that conversation, that she's questioning whether his super abilities might affect them. Just given our previous history covering Gen.
Exactly. And it is a question many nerds have asked about Superman and Lois Lane. And it actually came up in Kevin Smith films. Would Lois Lane's uterus survive Superman?
Yeah, it was Mallrats, wasn't it, where that came up?
Yes, it was. Good stuff.
Excellent. One final one as well, another question that Mark has about his own abilities. When he arrives at college, his mom tells him not to do drugs, and he goes, would they even work on me? And his mom says, I don't want you even trying to find out. I just thought it was interesting because, again, I have no idea what's coming in the future, but is this a nod to potentially drugs would work on Mark? What could happen to him if he's under the influence of some kind of drugs? That would be interesting. A possible trail for the show or comic to go down. I think I'm going to be writing the alternate future of Invincible in my own comic book.
Or what? Semi-Invincible? Is that the alternate comic book?
Maybe Invincible, possibly Invincible. Invincible, yeah.
Kinda
Invincible. There you go.
Great stuff. Well, with all those notes out of the way and our top points, Derek, do you want to tell me what your final thoughts are for this episode of Invincible Season 2, Episode 3, This Missive, This Machination?
I really, really enjoyed this episode. I was really surprised that it was split in so much in two between Alan the Alien and what's going on with Mark and Debbie on Earth. Alan the Alien's piece felt like its own episode. Hell, he got his own title card. And then when the credits came up, the writing credits came up at the end, I was going, wow, that was a short episode. But hey, they could do it whatever way they want to do these. And then suddenly I was back into another episode. I thought that post-credit scene, as I was calling it, I thought that moment with the Guardians of the Globe was the post-credit like we've gotten the last two episodes. And it was just going to end. And then it went on. And eventually I checked the timer and went, oh wow, we've got another 20 whole minutes here with Mark. But it led to the biggest reveal of the show so far, that Omni-Man did not leave Earth and go back to Viltrum. He's gone off to another planet, taken it over, and is now summoning Mark to him. That's pretty huge, really, if you go by what we've learned about the Viltrumites, that they are their own society, finding other planets and just taking them over across the galaxy. Not only has Omni-Man made a child on Earth with a human, he's left his post, not gone back to Viltrum, and brought Mark to him. So that's a really interesting place to leave their story, and a great cliffhanger for their story for next time. I did really enjoy hearing more about Alan, his creation, where he came from, his purpose, and then was really also pretty shocked by the ending of the episode, because that does look like the end of Alan as well. So yeah, I'm hoping he's not dead. I'm hoping we see him back next episode, but I thought it was a really, really good episode this time. How about yourself, Chris? What final thoughts do you have of this episode?
I absolutely loved it. It was fun, it's quick, and I'm not outside of all the points you kind of gave. For me, that jump to Debbie, that jump to Alan while everyone was knocking the nasties, or entwining tails, whatever way they do it in space or on Earth. It's a fun way of doing it, and bringing in that fourth wall breaking narrator aspect. It's fun, and it's a unique take. And it sets things up. And again, it leaves it, if this is a penultimate episode of part one, which it is, that's the way I'm feeling and kind of the senses, it's a huge cliffhanger to leave it on. Not just Omni-Man is back and he's summoned Mark. It's the Alan the Alien cliffhanger. Who is the mole on the council? Is it Thaddeus? Is Alan alive? Is that the end of Seth Rogen's character already? I don't think so, because Seth Rogen's going to write himself into everything. And I love him for it, because I love Seth Rogen, but that's a different story. It's just interesting to see where they go for this next episode, and how far they will go into the space aspect of Invincible, and what kind of like the Viltrumites and where all that will kind of go. Because again, they're space Nazis, and you now have a planet that has no Viltrumite on it. Nolan abandoned his post? Is he summoning Mark to say, I'm about to go back and take over, so I wanted to bring you away and keep you here while I destroy Earth? Like, where do we go in episode 4? So, really excited to see, and we're only a few days away. A week away.
Absolutely. A week away. Excellent stuff. I think we should hear what some of our fellow Guardians thought about last week's episode, Chris.
Yes, let's do it. Don't forget, you can send us your feedback by heading on over to our Facebook group. It's facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries, and you can leave us your thoughts there, or you can send us your feedback via email to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. First up, we have an email from the one and only Victor Doc Seismic Von Doom. Well done, Victor. Clever pun. I do enjoy it.
Like it.
Victor had this to say: Greetings, fellow Guardians. I'm very happy to have Invincible return. Who said animation is just for kids? I have found this series and comics very impressive and full of a drama. I particularly feel for Debbie, Mark, and Eve. They express real-world concerns and drama as much as Stan Lee and Marvel did back in the day. I laugh when the Atlantean Queen boasted of abandoning the barbarian custom of political marriage for trial by combat. How is Donald alive? Is Cecil cloning his staff? I must have missed this in the comics. I'm looking forward to an Omni-Man Homelander face-off in the upcoming Mortal Kombat game. I have heard opinions from the creators of The Boys and Invincible that Omni-Man would totally decimate Homelander. I guess we'll find out for ourselves in the game. Eagerly awaiting the TVPI podcast and feedback. Don't lose your head. Victor, Doc Seismic Von Doom.
Always a good thing to say in this universe, Victor. Don't lose your head.
It's going to be the kind of key one. As long as you can keep your head attached to your body and the rest of your body attached to your torso, you're going to be okay. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Thinking of Alan here, maybe not. But, haven't played MK1, the updated version that recently released. I do know, yes, Homelander and Omni-Man are playable characters as part of the DLC. Have not played it, not a big fighting fan. Looked at it, it looks impressive. They do have a fatality, which is kind of those big cinematic fatality kind of kills in it with Omni-Man, where he does the subway scene. He grabs them and
that's right.
Wish we had. It was good, and it is bloody, and it is disgusting and amazing all at the same time.
Yeah, we were talking about it last week. I'm a massive Mortal Kombat fan, particularly. I've been playing all the games, but I never buy them when they come out because they put in so much DLC to them that you might as well wait and get it all together. So I'll probably get it in about 6 to 8 months' time, but I really can't wait to have a go with Omni-Man. He looks really well powered, and I'm really intrigued to see how they pitch him up against Homelander when that comes out. That's out in a couple of weeks' time. But I know it's not voiced by Anthony Starr. But yeah, if you do Google the internet who'd win in a battle, Omni-Man is the one that wins. He will take out Homelander pretty quickly, apparently. He's way, way stronger than Homelander. Yeah. So very intriguing to see. Great stuff, Victor. I hope you get to play it. And let us know if you get to play it before us, what you thought of Mortal Kombat. You did have one other question, which I think is the big question that we've had so far this season. And myself and John talked quickly about it last week. How the hell is Donald alive? He just reappeared out of nowhere. And Debbie called it out last week. We didn't see him this week because we only saw Cecil for a second this week. But how's Donald back? Where did that come from? Was it in the comics, Chris?
I actually can't fully remember.
Right.
I have a vague understanding in my head, so I think it might be, but I also might have missed it. I just can't. So it's one of these. Yeah, well, they'll pay it off. They'll pay it off and tell us.
So basically, not only does Donald look like Agent Coulson, he also has come back from the dead after dying in a big sacrifice in the first season.
Yes.
So he is the Agent Coulson of this universe.
100%.
Great stuff. Thanks, Victor, for your thoughts.
Thanks, Victor.
We also got an email in from Coffee and Vodka who says, greetings, fellow super seismic defenders. From start to ending, a perfectly detailed overview of a world constantly beset by mega events, ever in need of surveillance, assistance, and correction. This makes Cecil the planet's #1 superhero whose power is seemingly not needing sleep. Love the distinction of a society that considers marriage barbaric and trial by combat civilized, though, to be fair, they're kind of the same thing. Standout moments for me were Mark and Mom finally beginning to team up in combating their post-Omni-Man PTSD. Mark's brief dark turn in the Cursed City and the Angstrom closing scene. He's got some serious gravitas. So far, so great. 5 fish fillets, unsafe substructures, and deadhead dads out of 5. Peace and take care. Coffee and vodka. Excellent stuff, Coffee and vodka. 5 out of 5 for last week's episode.
Yes, thank God. 5 fish fillets. 5 fish fillets out of fish fillets. And I wonder if that's the McDonald's fish fillets, or is this an actual fish burger, or these chicken fingers? What's the quantity and quality here? For me, I'm the same. I love this episode, and it's a fun one as well, because we actually barely talked about it, my thoughts on episode 2, but it's a fun one to see Mark go off and do that whole arranged marriage versus political kind of marriage for political convenience, trial by combat. It is a fun one. And then seeing how that all plays out, because you're like, how is this going to play out? Is he going to marry a fish woman? It'd be fine if it was like Aquaman kind of versus they flipped it very fun, which is kind of fish head legs. But like, what if it was the other way around?
Exactly.
If it was like a merman, who knows?
Yeah. Absolutely, but that's the fun they like to have in this show, right? That's the other character voiced by Tatiana Maslany, Chris, in case you didn't know.
There you go.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Coffee Vodka, and thanks so much to everybody else for your feedback. You can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com with your thoughts on any of the episodes we have so far, or pop on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries. You can share your thoughts on any of the spoiler posts we have for each and every episode of the shows we're covering.
Yes, thank you so much. We'll be back next week for the finale of part 1, season 2 of Invincible, which is episode 4. It's been a while. And I want you all to say, it's been a while, like that every time I mention the title next episode. Because that's all that anytime I see, it's been a while. It's when I read it, that's how it goes out of my head. But yes, make sure you join us for that next week.
Naughty's Christian rock, Chris? Is it?
Always. Creed. It's been a while.
It is Creed. I think that's somewhere in the back of my head. Excellent. We have loads and loads of other podcasts that we've been covering over the last couple of weeks. We've just finished our coverage of Loki Season 2, an excellent ending to an okay season, which made the season overall seem much better than it was. But we did really enjoy the final episode. A great closing out of it. But yeah, I think there was some odd ones in there as we went along, where we weren't agreeing on whether an episode was good or not.
Yes.
Which was quite interesting.
There was definitely.
Yeah.
It was almost like a football match. It was a game of two halves and a game of two teams. And much like football, I didn't understand the rules and what was happening half the time. But sure, at the end, it was a fun time.
Exactly. It ended off with a great capper on the season. Great stuff. We also finished covering The Boys spin-off Gen V. If you haven't watched Gen V and you're watching Invincible on Prime Video, why not pop on over and watch Gen V? It's the spin-off of The Boys. It's a very adult live-action show. And I think, as I've said in my notes here, if you've liked Invincible and you're old enough, go check out Gen V. I think you'll enjoy it.
Yes, very much. If you like The Boys, you'll like Gen V. If you like any college drama as a kid, you'll like Gen V. If you like good TV, you'll like Gen V. Yeah. I think probably the end bit is if you like TV and good TV, you'll like Gen V.
I'd still caveat it. I don't think it's for everybody, Chris.
It is. More people that watch it, we definitely get more and more of these shows. I'm just telling people, hey, your granny will love it. She will love it. Especially that opening episode, like where there is a 9-foot the phallic object, or at least from a screen size. Like, yeah, she'll love it. Just tell your granny to watch TV.
She might like it. Yes. But in the interest of covering every single thing that comes out related to comic books, we also went to the cinema this week and covered the next in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, chatting about The Marvels, the brand new movie coming out from the MCU. The movie was so much fun. Really enjoyed it. Had lots of fun in the cinema. There tends to be so much grim stuff out there. I think I really enjoyed going to a movie that I could just laugh and have fun at.
Yeah, and that's the key thing. It's a good, rollicking good cinematic blockbuster. And it has some very fun comedic moments. It has some good action. If you like Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, or Monica Rambeau, if you like those characters, you'll love this. If you like a good time, you'll love this. If you don't like a good time, you won't like this, but you wouldn't be listening to this podcast anyway, so it's okay.
Absolutely. And all of those podcasts about all of those things are available on our main feed on TV Podcast Industry. So pop on over to our website at tvpodcastindustry.com and subscribe to our main feed or any of the other feeds that you'll find up there. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back with you next week.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. Keep watching, keep listening, and keep being invincible.
Bye.
Bye.